tonight the Saudi prince who received secret payments for Britain's biggest arms deal, how the money was paid and how it was spent, and why our Panorama revelations have the world's top leaders lost for words.
I'm glad you're answering that question.
Britain could have made a stand against corruption.
Instead, we're just sleazeballs.
The decision to pull the plug on a corruption investigation into Britain's biggest arms deal was widely condemned as a cover-up, both here and across the world. Whatever the real reason the files were sent to the basement of the Serious Fraud Office, it would be wrong to say that nobody has continued to investigate exactly where the money went and who knew about it. As Panorama's Jane Corbin for a start.
This is a story about princes and planes, about arms dealers and millions of pounds secretly flowing through mysterious bank accounts, commissions to some, corruption to others. It all centres on a fabulously wealthy mover and shaker with extraordinary access.
I salute a prince, a statesman and a friend.
The British and Saudi governments tried to keep the lid on this scandal for over 2 decades. A corruption investigation act, just as it was getting close to the truth. The only way to discover what really happened is to follow the money. So that's what we did.
I'm on my way to Washington on the trail of the money. Hundreds of millions of pounds in kickbacks went from Britain's largest arms company to one of Saudi Arabia's most colourful and controversial princes.
The story ends with the British government caving in to blackmail, halting its own investigation into the scandal, and all the while protesting they were still committed to stamping out corruption.
Take a look at this.
Hello, my name is McCartney. Corruption is a very serious issue. The British government is totally committed to combating corruption overseas and here at home.
But is it? Tonight we'll show you just how committed the government really is to stamping out corruption. The central character in our story is Prince Bandar bin Sultan, a friend of prime ministers, royalty and presidents. The son of a Saudi royal and a slave girl, Bandar rose to become his country's high-profile ambassador to Washington, prized guest on US talk shows.
You know what? I would be offended if I thought we had a monopoly on corruption.
I'd flown to Washington to meet an ex-Secret Service agent who's never spoken publicly before.
Mr. Caruso, I'm Jane Corbin. Nice to meet you.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
David Caruso is an expert in money laundering who found out a great deal about Prince Bandar's financial arrangements in America. After 9/11, most of the Al-Qaeda hijackers turned out to be Saudi. Mr. Caruso was called in by ambassador bankers, Riggs Bank. They wanted to find out if any funds were going to terrorists from the Saudi embassy.
Those funds were in Prince Bandar's account and his wife's account.
So there was substantial amounts of cash?
Yes, there were large sums. It was a large relationship. It was a $100+ million relationship.
$100+ million.
Yes.
No links to terrorism were found, but Mr. Caruso did identify many suspicious transactions in some of the accounts.
What we discovered was clearly large movements of money, both cash and other types of money, that we simply could not understand.
And was the Saudi ambassador himself, Prince Bandar, prepared to tell you what lay at the root of all this?
We were never able to get those answers.
And did you worry? Did you think this sounds fishy?
Absolutely.
Now Panorama has established millions of pounds identified as suspicious in Washington came from London. They were part of the proceeds of a huge arms deal, but instead of staying in the UK, the money was quietly deposited abroad. Why? That's what the Serious Fraud Office was trying to get to the bottom of. 2 years before begun looking at a slush fund, which guided other Saudi officials with luxury holidays, limos and call girls.
My job is to decide whether there are reasonable grounds to suspect an offence involving fraud. I looked at what we had and I took the view there was, so we commenced the investigation.
The investigation was to lead to one of the most powerful men in Saudi Arabia. Prince Bandar bin Sultan's the subject of a new book, launched in London last month, written by his old friend Bill Simpson, who first the prince in the RAF back in the 60s.
Here was someone who had shaped world events, both as a diplomat and a statesman over the years.
What sort of a character is Prince Bandar?
Complex. He is an enigma. He is charismatic beyond belief, amazingly kind, amazingly generous, often Machiavellian, but overall a very powerful individual who understands how to use power.
Ever since Bandar trained here as a fighter pilot, he's had a soft spot for England. He's been a friend of the Prime Minister's, one of whom recorded a special message for the reception.
I was always pleased to see him when I was Prime Minister, because he brought me extraordinary insights and bold proposals.
The boldest proposal Bandar brought was in 1984, to equip the Saudi Air Force with a fleet of Tornadoes and Hawks, and a whole infrastructure for the warplanes. The deal was called Al Yamama, the Dove of Peace. It would earn the UK more than £40 billion over the next 2 decades, and save the plane's struggling manufacturer, British Aerospace.
How key was Prince Bandar to that arms deal?
He was central to the deal. He approached Margaret Thatcher, and effectively the deal was done without the paperwork. That sort of followed on later. He negotiated the aircraft, which became the Al Yamama contract, which has been running ever since.
But corruption within the Saudi royal family was a big problem that Whitehall had long been aware of. Our ambassador to Riyadh had even spelled it out in a telegram to the Foreign Office in 1971.
Let me tell you what it says. Our ambassador is being extremely undiplomatic about one of the most powerful men in the Saudi government, the defence minister. He has, of course, says the ambassador, a corrupt interest in all contracts.
But did that stop the deal?
Today's signing at Lancaster House was a triumphant climax to a year of patient bargaining.
In 1985, the British Defence Minister signed the Al Yamama Agreement with his Saudi counterpart, Prince Sultan, the very man accused in the telegram of having corrupt interest in every contract. With him was his son, Prince Bandar, who'd schmoozed Margaret Thatcher.
The Saudis paid for the planes not in cash, but in another commodity, oil. Britain was getting up to 600,000 barrels full a day. That's this much, a tanker full every day, and it's been going on for 20 years. Al Yamama was and still is the biggest and most lucrative arms deal in history.
The deal was good for Britain's economy, good for British Aerospace and Saudi security, but it would be even better for some Saudi princes. They siphoned off vast sums of their country's wealth, money belonging to their people, courtesy of the arms deal. No sooner did the Tornadoes start arriving in the kingdom than there were rumours Prince Bandar and others were getting £600 million in kickbacks from the deal. In Saudi, as elsewhere, the price of arms is often hiked, so money can be skimmed off the top. How do we know? Well, now we've got proof that under the UK-Saudi deal, the Saudis did pay more than the Tornadoes were actually worth.
Secret British government documents released last year by mistake and hastily recalled let the cat out of the bag. They show that each Tornado was worth around £16 million, but over £21 million is the amount that the Defence Minister, Prince Bandar's father, agreed to pay. That's a markup of a third, or £600 million. And that's exactly the sum that Bandar and the others were rumoured to be getting at the time. So do you think that those corruption allegations have any truth in them?
Well, I can't answer that. I can only say that I've tackled him directly, and he has been absolutely direct in saying that he did not.
Prince Bandar negotiated a